Hey, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. So a few weeks ago, I made a video about this book right here. It's called How to Draw the Animated Nexus by Steve Rude. It was a really fun video to make, and it seems like it was very well received with you guys, which I'm really happy about. The video was part review of the book as well as part demonstration, and the demonstration part of it I filmed separately. It was an overhead shot of me drawing exercises from the book, talking about figure drawing and gesture and different fundamentals that are spoken about in the book. Because I didn't want the initial video to be so long and there were other parts of the video as well, I only really used about 10% of that demonstration part that I filmed. So I went through a lot of that footage and I thought there might be some stuff in there of value for you to watch. It's really just me working my way through some of the model sheets that Steve put into this book, talking about some of the notes that he makes in the book, as well as some of my thinking when it comes to gesture drawing and figure drawing. So I thought it would be cool to just take that footage and post it here as a video. So this is really just like long form, very casual, real time, nothing sped up. It's part educational, part just talking and drawing. So if that sounds interesting to you, this video might be for you. So feel free to draw along with me, keep me on in the background while you're drawing something else. I hope that you find this interesting and it has some value for you. Speaking of this book, there were a lot of inquiries about the availability of this book. I think since I posted that last video, this version of the book is sold out in Steve Rude's shop. I think there might still be a black and white version of the book available and perhaps a PDF version as well. I'll leave a link in the description below with Steve Rude's online shop. You could find whatever version of this book might still be left, but he also has a ton of other books and art prints and all different things available. It's definitely worth checking out, especially if you found that last video helpful and interesting and you're quickly becoming a Steve Rude fan like myself. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please do let me know in the comments below. It'll help me understand whether or not I should make some more longer form content like this. Perhaps stuff where I'm just talking while drawing. I try to keep these videos within a certain time frame so that they're not too long. But if seeing something a little bit more long and less edited is of interest to you, please do let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit that like button. It definitely helps. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please think about subscribing. You can see more videos just like this. I try to put them out on a weekly, if not more than that basis. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy this one. Take care. Okay, so I thought this would be a good place to start. This is early on in the book. It's just a page about figure construction. This is the most fundamental, basic way you can approach a figure by starting with the gesture, building up basic shapes and masses, and then getting into some of the refinement. So Steve Rude breaks it down really, really clearly, just in 3 easy steps. Also referring to the basic male and female mannequin over here. There's some really great notes involved as well. I'm just gonna jump in and just start drawing what I see. I think that's always a good place to start. I'm gonna start the way Steve starts here, just with the basic gesture lines. Mine are gonna be probably less nice than his, but regardless, I'm going for just the basic gist of the stance. You see how he breaks it down into essentially a stick figure. And although I might, when I'm drawing, I might not break it down exactly like this, it's similar in the way that when I'm drawing a pose from my head, I try to block it out really fast and then build up and refine in sort of steps. Because if you just start here and then start working on the hairline and then all of a sudden the pupil and all that kind of stuff before you get all the way down here, you don't really know where your figure is going to end. So this is always just a really good reminder, real basic reminder, that at the very least, you just want to show where the figure starts and where it ends. So now that we have the basic gesture, I'm going to go in and try and build up some of those bigger masses. When I'm constructing figures, I like to draw these, like almost draw through the character, the way Steve Rude talks about often, where I'll draw sort of like the circular cylinder aspect of a waist or a hip, just so that I could think about it in the round rather than just like one-dimensionally from the front. I think a lot of times some of us feel as though we could overlook some of these more fundamental exercises in terms of building up a figure, just because we think of ourselves much more, I don't know, advanced, or we're too old for something like this. I think that's short-sighted, and I often remind myself of that, because I think of those very things sometimes, those very excuses, thinking that like, oh, this is sort of like what you see in a kid's book or something like that. But just like a master violinist or pianist still practices the basic scales, as artists, we need to constantly remind ourselves of the fundamentals of figure construction as well, no matter how advanced we might think we are, or how much our own way of doing things seems to be working. I think it's always a good reminder to be aware of these sort of just basic principles in terms of figure construction. When I'm drawing from my head, or if I'm drawing from life, oftentimes I use a lot of rough lines to describe the basic gesture and shape of something. And then before I go in and want to start refining a little bit, I'll just lightly erase. I do this again when I start to ink as well, but now I'm refining a little bit more with the pencil, sort of in the same vein of inking, but not nearly as precise. I'm still staying rough and trying to find those lines, but I just want to have a shadow to work on top of. And then I'm going to take a mechanical pencil and try to get a little bit more precision with some of the detail here, since I'm working kind of small. I've never drawn Nexus before, so this will be interesting. He's got a really cool, very simplified design. Seems as though it was almost meant for animation. All right, and there we go. Obviously, this is a very poor man's version of a Steve Rude Nexus pose. It's certainly a worthwhile exercise, even beyond getting the details of the Nexus character right. It's really just a great exercise in the way to build up a figure. Starting with the gesture is always a really great way to start. In fact, if you ever go to a figure drawing class, oftentimes that first hour of, say, like a 3-hour session, the first hour is really made up of very, very short poses, sometimes starting with like 10-second poses and working your way up to a minute pose. And in 10 seconds or 15 seconds or 30 seconds, there's really not much you can do other than a real simple gesture drawing. And you realize when you do classes like that, that by the time you get to a minute 2-minute, a 3-minute drawing, 3 minutes then seems like an eternity. You're able to build up a character in a really short amount of time because you get so used to just getting the gesture on the page really fast. Everything else is really like icing on the cake. It allows you for that time to just start building up the masses and refining. So keeping that in mind is really important, and it's something that I constantly have to remind myself of as well. Okay, so let's go to the female character here as well. I'm going to draw her a little bit bigger than I did the Nexus character. I'll draw her right over here. And I'm just going to go with that same idea in mind, starting with the gesture and then building up. I made that video recently about studying other artists' work. And obviously, there's a lot that you can get out of studying an artist's finished work. But doing stuff like this really helps you better understand the way someone like Steve Rude goes about creating his figures. And you might say that, oh, this is just for the sake of the book that he's laying out a character in this way. When he draws, he doesn't really follow these rules. But I tell you, if you watch his lives, you'll see that this is actually pretty much exactly the way he starts every figure drawing. So since we were just doing those gesture warm-ups, since this is something that's more detailed and finished, I still want to approach it in the same or similar way, where I start with the basic gesture first and then build up from there. So I don't want that to, I don't want to already forget that by all of a sudden just going in with some of the more details of the head before I get any of the rest of the body in. And you can see I already got kind of caught up in drawing some of the details of the head before I reminded myself, hey, what did we just learn? So again, it's a constant reminder. One of the things that I really like about the way that Steve Rude constructs his characters is that they look strong and powerful without having to do this like over refinement of the muscles. This guy looks like he's a strong superhero, but he doesn't look like he's on a, bodybuilding stage on a bunch of illegal supplements. And I think that speaks to the simplicity of his lines. He's able to convey strength and power and strong anatomy without having to rely on a lot of flashy, tiny little lines. He's able to do it with few clear lines. There's really an efficiency there in terms of his approach. Okay, I'm going to go in and add a little bit of ink to this just because he inked it, so I feel like I want to ink it too. Let's see, maybe I'll use a brush pen, my Pentel Pocket brush pen. I think I'll I'll go with that one. There's a really great simplicity to the Nexus character design, but also because there's so much black in the costume, it's sort of inevitable that there's going to be moments like this where it kind of becomes like black on black, which I think a less confident artist would be a little bit intimidated by. But Steve Rude, you see here in his original, he just highlights two little knuckles there. Let me try to get that in focus, just in white. And I think that's just like the mark of real confidence in terms of not feeling as though you have to like draw a white halo around the fist, but just two little lighter areas that indicate where the fist ends, so that there's no like tangents drawn. There are definitely advantages, stylistically and otherwise, to using like a white halo or white outline. Sometimes I think they really do look aesthetically pleasing and are also a good solution, but it doesn't have to be the only way to describe things that are dark on dark. That speaks to his Toth influence for sure. Toth was definitely one to utilize something in shadow fading into something else in shadow without trying to outline anything in white or over describe really anything. And like I said, there's a real confidence there. All right, so there's a little quick ink drawing. Could you guess which one I did and which one is the original? It's a really cool pose. I think that's super dynamic and very powerful. I tried to grasp that as much as I could in my humble rendition. These are too good to pass up. I feel like I want to take a crack at one of these. Let's see. Which one should I draw here? They're all really good. I think I'm going to go with this one, though. That's a good one right there. It's a challenging angle, but the expression's really great. Steve Rude is definitely a disciple of the Loomis school of head and figure construction. That's definitely evident in his Nexus character designs for sure. I never really studied too closely from the Loomis books, but what I have seen of them, they definitely feel like solid instruction, and it really does seem like the framework behind a lot of the head and face construction of a lot of the artists that I look up to. So it's a book that I definitely want to look into more closely and perhaps study much more in depth. If that's a video any of you would like to see in the future, let me know in the comments. Can't help but inject some of my own artistic sensibilities here. It's definitely not a one-for-one in terms of a Steve Rude study, but I'm going to add some ink to it and see if we could get a little bit closer to the dude's rendition here. One of the things that's really cool to see is just the way he simplifies the ears, and he draws it really consistently every time. Something I tried to pick up on in my version as well. But it's a really great shorthand for a complicated thing such as an ear. Okay, let's move on. So we have some of the other characters. This is Sundra Peel. I think this is Nexus's love interest or, female co-star. I guess this is like her more superhero costume. And then this is her in her downtime. These are some really great poses here. I think I'm going to take a shot at drawing this Sundra character. Let's do this one. That's a really great pose right there. I think that'll be definitely challenging, but a good exercise for sure. I'm going to go for that one. So the more I go on with these copies and exercises from this book, the more I'm getting better at finding the gesture in each one of these poses and getting them down relatively quickly. Okay, so I got the basic rough of the character worked out, but it's certainly not as refined and subtle as Steve Rude's beautiful drawing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just refine it with going straight in with pen. I find that that allows me to be a little bit more precise. As long as I have the structure underneath with pencil, I could kind of carve out some of the details with pen and be a little bit more accurate, more than I could with pencil at least. So I'm going to give that a shot, trying to reference this as closely as possible. There's such a simplicity really to his designs and the way he goes about drawing. He makes it look easy like all the greats do. And then when you give it a shot yourself, you realize all the complexity that's there and how hard it is to capture what he's capturing with as few lines as he does. So definitely keeps you on your toes. And for me, at least, this has been a humbling experience so far. I'd love to take another crack at this character though down the line, because I think that this is a really cool design. I really like the drapery and the way, similar to Nexus's costume, it's just very heavy black and white. And so, yeah, I'd definitely like to take another crack at the Sundra character down the line. So like I said, this is really just skimming the surface. This is really just the first few pages. There's quite a bit of work in this book. It goes into environments, villains, more turnarounds. There's some actual storyboards in here as well. So it's a very worthwhile book. And it's cool that it could just kind of fold and rest very easily next to my sketchbook on my drawing desk. So this is these exercises and some of these poses are something that I will definitely be revisiting as time goes on. This very quickly has become a staple of my drawing book collection, that's for sure.